What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. I get a lot of questions about, well, hey, can this VMAX card be used, or how do you build a deck for this card, or can this ever be competitive? And so I wanted to start a series of how to build a deck around any VMAX Pokemon that's currently in the game, how to make the best competitive decks, or like the best ways I would go about building competitively for all of the VMAX cards that are in the game. And today we're starting out with all of the VMAX Pokemon from Sword and Shield base set, which are Stonjourner, Snorlax, Morpeko, and Lapras. So in this series, I will not be supplying exact deck lists, but I will be showing you a lot of the cards I think you could include in decks with these Pokemon, focused around these Pokemon VMAXs for each of them. I'll be showing off multiple options, actually, for strategies or ways to build for most of the VMAX Pokemon, and as long as they don't have just like one obvious way and nothing else that would work, I'll be showing a couple different ways you could build with them and talking about what the lists might look like. So I'm supplying you with kind of the knowledge and the starting ideas of how to build, so then if you are specifically interested in one of these VMAX or one of the VMAX further along in the series, then you can put in the extra time for that specific card and that specific deck. So I hope you all enjoy this series, and before we get into it, shout out to PotownStore.com, the best place for you to get PTCGO codes. Make sure you use code CELIO for 5% off, and they will have Darkness Ablaze codes very soon, so be on the lookout for that. So if you are a little bit newer to the Pokemon game, just real quick on what VMAX cards are. So V Pokemon are all basic, and when they're knocked out, your opponent takes 2 prize cards. V Max Pokemon evolve from Pokemon V, and when they are knocked out, your opponent gets 3 prize cards. So in the newest set, Darkness Ablaze, which will be coming out in a few weeks at the time of recording this video, there are some new cards that support VMAX Pokemon very well, Rose and Rose Tower, and so they may help some older VMAX Pokemon and just all VMAX Pokemon in general become more viable or stay viable, or maybe finally be played in a deck. And I should also mention I will be talking about this relative to the standard format post-rotation. So the standard format rotation will be happening in August, and it will be team up through Darkness Ablaze, or team up on, and then every new set that comes out will be added to the standard format. I do have a video on this channel about formats and whatnot, so I'll link that in the comments or description in case you are interested in that. But let's start off part 1 of the building a deck for every VMAX Pokemon, Sword and Shield edition. We're going to start this off with Stonjourner. So what I'm going to do for this, like kind of the format, is I'm going to start off with the type advantage and weakness. So just kind of the inherent things that are good about the Pokemon based on its type and its weakness. Like you see here on the screen. So Stonjourner is fighting type, and that's good because there are 2 new very strong Pokemon coming out in Darkness Ablaze that are weak to fighting, Eternatus VMAX and Vikavolt V. So Stonjourner VMAX, naturally, it kind of gains some relevance because it's fighting type. It can do 200 damage. So that means it can one-shot Eternatus VMAX and Vikavolt V, unless they have something like a weakness guard energy attached to them. So off the bat, we're getting 2 new very strong and very relevant Pokemon cards. One's a VMAX and one's a V, so they reward multiple prize cards. We're getting 2 new relevant cards that Stonjourner hits for weakness, which is really good. And another good thing here on this slide is that Stonjourner's actual weakness of grass, there's not a lot of relevant grass Pokemon. Decidueye coming out of Darkness Ablaze may be like a rogue-ish, tier 2-ish deck, depending on how the meta forms, and then Rillaboom VMAX has only seen just a little bit of play. So there's nothing very prevalent in the metagame in standard format, pre-rotation or post-rotation really, that is grass type that is a threat. So Stonjourner VMAX, as far as weaknesses go, grass weakness is a pretty good one to have, and as a fighting type, it is hitting some very important Pokemon for weakness. So the first possible build here I have would be kind of a straightforward, aggressive kind of build. And now the cards farther bottom right are like kind of maybes to include in the list. But the Rose card that I was talking about, it's a supporter card. Choose up to 2 basic energy from your discard pile and attach them to one of your Pokemon VMAX, then discard your hand. So Stonjourner's kind of issue is that it needs exactly 3 fighting energy to use its main attack, Max Rockfall, for 200 damage, which should be two-shotting everything and one-shotting some things that it's weak to. So we're going to plan to two-shot most things and then one-shot a couple relevant decks that are weak to fighting. But to do that consistently on turn 2, we're going to need to accelerate energy somehow. So hopefully we'll be doing that with Rose, and if not, we could always have Turbo Patch as a backup option. Now, Turbo Patch is another new card from Darkness Ablaze. It's an item. Flip a coin if heads, choose a basic energy from your discard pile, and attach it to one of your basic Pokemon, excluding Pokemon GX. So you would have to do this while it's still Stonjourner V, but that's just fine. You can Turbo Patch and then evolve into VMAX. Now, with Rose, you have to discard your entire hand, but Silvally GX has been a popular card that people are experimenting with to pair with Rose, and Silvally GX has the ability Disc Reload. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. So you can Rose and then refill your hand with Silvally GX. And a couple interesting cards you could do with this. You can run Martial Arts Dojo, so your Pokemon with fighting energy do more damage. You can run Karate Belt, so if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, the attacks of your Pokemon cost 1 fighting less, so you could use Max Rockfall for 2 energy instead of 3. And then there's also the option of running something like Sandaconda V, which is 220 HP fighting type basic V Pokemon, and it could get some very solid chip damage in early. So when I say that, I mean if you go second, you can go ahead and use Sand Eater for 30 or maybe even 40 with Martial Arts Dojo, or 50 if you have a Vitality Band. So you can swing for 30 to 50 damage for 1 energy and also accelerate a fighting energy to Sandaconda so that it threatens using Sand Breath next turn if they don't deal with it. Even if they do knock it out, then that's 30, 40, or 50 damage already on that Pokemon, so Stonjourner VMAX has to do less damage, so that if it's not a VMAX Pokemon and its health is somewhere around the low 200s or mid 200s, you can actually just clean it up with Stonjourner's Max Rockfall. And even if it is a VMAX, it might proof you of them healing out of a 2-shot or something like that. But I like the idea of potentially leading with the Sand Eater to then threaten Sand Breath if they don't take care of Sandaconda on their next turn, because 220 damage will knock out most V Pokemon. It'll knock out a fair amount of GX Pokemon, and it's also fighting type like Stonjourner is, so it's hitting those same threats for weakness. So that was my first kind of build for Stonjourner VMAX, like just going straight forward with Rose Turbo Patch as your backup energy acceleration, Silvally to have consistent draw, Karate Belt so you have another, it's not really energy acceleration, but it makes you need less energy, Martial Arts Dojo for a little bit of extra damage, and then Sandaconda V as a potential early attacker. You can even power up with Turbo Patches on the bench while you're attacking with Stonjourner VMAX. And then my next possible build for Stonjourner VMAX is a healing-based build, since Stonjourner VMAX has fairly high HP with 330 HP. It has the Stone Gift attack, attach a fighting energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon, heal 120 damage from that Pokemon. So if you take a small attack, you can even just heal it, attach accelerated energy from hand, and you don't even need to accelerate energy if you whiffed energy attachment. So in this build, I'd probably be running things like Big Charm, Malolana, Hyper Potion, and Indeedee V, which Big Charm gives you extra HP, and then the other 3 cards there all heal your Pokemon. And then there could be 2 options basically for what you want to do for your energy acceleration route with Rose. So you could either run Rose Silvally GX to draw after you discard your hand, and as well as Martial Arts Dojo for extra damage, or you could just play Rose and Rose Tower. Rose Tower is a new stadium card that combos with Rose pretty well. So if the stadium is once during each player's turn before their attack, they may draw cards until they have 3 cards in their hand. So you can play Rose, discard your hand, attach your 2 energy, and then use Rose Tower to draw up to 3. Basically, you never want to play Rose and just leave yourself with a 0 card hand. So Rose Tower or Silvally GX is kind of taking care of that negative effect of Rose. So the more I talk about it and the more I was working on this video and working on these deck ideas, I ended up liking the more straightforward or aggressive build of Stonjourner a little bit more. I really like that idea of the early attacks with Sandaconda V, but the healing is probably the more traditional way to try to build with a tanky VMAX like this. And a lot of VMAXs, since they have high health, they just you end up wanting to run Big Charm or healing or of some sorts or something like that. So that does kind of happen with VMAXs a lot, and you'll see that with our next one, actually. We're talking about Snorlax VMAX. And of course, we'll start with the type advantage and weaknesses. So being a colorless type Pokemon, it gets access to the new powerful colorless energy from Darkness Ablaze, which this translated proxy is missing part of the text, which just happens to be the important part of the text. But as long as it's attached to a colorless Pokemon, as long as it's attached to a Pokemon in general, it provides colorless energy. But if it's attached to a colorless Pokemon, that Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage. So you can buff up your damage a bit with powerful colorless energies. And being a colorless Pokemon whose attacks are completely colorless cost, it means you can use triple acceleration energy to attach to your Pokemon as 3 colorless energy as once for the turn. Its weakness, however, it has fighting type weakness, and since it shares a weakness with Eternatus VMAX and Vikavolt V, and fighting type Pokemon may become popular because of that, Snorlax VMAX and other fighting weak Pokemon could take collateral damage with people trying to target down Eternatus VMAX with their fighting type decks, and then they'll also hit your Snorlax deck with their fighting type weakness. So that is something to keep in mind, maybe a reason to run weakness guard energy in your deck. So the first possible build, now I will say I do not think this is the way to go, but I think it's just an obvious one I wanted to get out of the way. So Porygon Z with Crazy Code as often as you like during your turn. You may attach a special energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. So you could just load it up with powerful colorless energy, weakness guard energy, things like that. Now the reason why I don't think this is the way to go is because I think the new Salamence VMAX is just better at doing this, but the point of this series is to pick the VMAX of your choice and make it as good as it can possibly be. So we are working with Snorlax VMAX here, and I don't think this is the way to make Snorlax VMAX as good as it can be, because with Gmax Fall, if you have a full bench, you're swinging for 210 damage. So even if you had an ideal setup of 4 powerful colorless energy on your Snorlax VMAX, if that could happen, that high roll situation, you're still only hitting 290, which doesn't one-shot other VMAX Pokemon. So I don't think it's worth going for stacking it up with powerful colorless energy when it's just safer to go for the 2-shot and play a different kind of strategy. So the next strategy I have for Snorlax VMAX, or the next possible deck build, would be building it tanky and healing a lot. Also using Welder. So Welder with basic fire energies and Hyper Potion goes together well. If you're able to Welder, attach, swing with Gmax Fall, and you get hit, next turn you can either Welder and then Hyper Potion those energy away and heal 120, or you can even attach a triple acceleration energy and Hyper Potion that away, and Malolana in the same turn, and Indeedee V in the same turn. If you use Watch Over, Hyper Potion, and Malolana, you can heal 260 HP that turn. And with buff padding, since Snorlax VMAX has exactly 4 retreat, Snorlax VMAX can have a base HP of 390 HP, which is a lot. That's a lot of HP and a lot of damage your opponent has to deal. So I kind of like this version. Unfortunately, this doesn't gain too much from the newer sets. This version was kind of able to be played in Sword and Shield base set, but I still think this is one of the best ways to go for Snorlax VMAX. Now, the last one In my mind, this one would focus a little bit more on having these backup 2-prize attackers. So you can try to make your opponent knock out your 3-prize Snorlax VMAX, then a 2-prize V attacker or GX attacker, and then go in with your next Snorlax VMAX 3-prize or bulky. The big option I think you have here is, do you want to run buff padding, which only helps Snorlax VMAX? Do you want to run toughness cloak or toughness cape, which helps double V and Cramorant V? Do you want to run big charm, which helps all of your Pokemon, or do you want to run some combination? So double V is really good after your opponent knocks out your first Snorlax VMAX to go down to 3 prizes. Then you can do Revenge Blast for 210 with a powerful colorless energy. You can swing in for 230. And if you have Toughness Cloak, you are a 260 HP Pokemon, and then with Soft Wool taking 30 less damage. So essentially they have to do 290 damage to one-shot your 2-prize attacker. And then Cramorant V, of course, could be a 250 HP Pokemon, and you can snipe the Denes with Spit Shot. So I really like this idea. I think this idea is really cool. It's not anything too crazy, but just the plan of going in with your 2-prize attacker in the mid to late game, and even if you decide to run the toughness cape, you'll have this monster double V. So I think that's a really cool idea, and I would love to see some of your lists if you want to like comment. This goes for any of the VMAX Pokemon. If you take any of these ideas from the video and make a list, just tell me in the comments, or DM me on Twitter or anything like that. I'd love to see the lists you come up with. Next, we have Morpeko VMAX, type advantage and weakness for Morpeko VMAX. It is lightning type, so it gets access to a lot of good cards like Coco Prism, Speed Lightning Energy, Boltund V. Unfortunately, there's not any relevant decks that are weak to lightning, and I partially think that's because lightning has been so good, and it's kept out decks that are weak to lightning because of Pikarom and Boltund. And this suffers the same weakness as Snorlax VMAX, where it's fighting weak, so it's getting hit by all the things trying to hit Eternatus VMAX. So I will say Morpeko VMAX, I think it probably has the least amount of potential out of all of the VMAXs in this video for the Sword and Shield VMAXs. But let's see, we're going to try. So Morpeko VMAX. It's 300 HP lightning type, and you're swinging 180 for 3 energy, and it also does 20 to all of your opponent's benched Pokemon. I struggled to find something that we can do with that 20 damage on all of your opponent's benched Pokemon. You may be familiar with the Morpeko VMAX Dusknoir deck and Expanded, where the Dusknoir moves around all the damage counters. Unfortunately, we don't really have anything like that that would work well in Team Up through Darkness Ablaze. So for this build, we're just hoping we can 2-shot something in the active with max discharge while spreading 40 over time to all of the benched Pokemon, and then that will help us clean up either 2 smaller Pokemon or 1 big Pokemon later with either Boltund V or another Morpeko VMAX. Now, I don't have Rose or Rose Tower or anything. I don't have Rose, actually, just because we're not playing Rose Tower without Rose in this deck. Or you could to stamp proof yourself, but I digress. We're not playing Rose because we have Tapu Koko to accelerate energy, and we also have Turbo Patch, which can accelerate to Morpeko V, and can also accelerate to Boltund V, and Boltund V can use Electrify to accelerate if we go second. That's a really good first turn. One tool I put up here as kind of like a let's try this out. Maybe we can make this work with fighting type weak Pokemon. So Struggle Gloves is new out of Darkness Ablaze. If the Pokemon this card is attached to has weakness to your opponent's active Pokemon's type, its attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So if we're swinging against fighting type Pokemon, we are going to do an extra 30 damage. So our max discharge would do 210 instead of 180, and Boltund would just do a blanket extra 30. So it's like having an extra 30. It's like having an extra energy on the board. So this is kind of a simple build, but I made 2 for Morpeko, and the next one is definitely a little bit more wild and situational. So with this one, I thought let's play with that spread damage. Like I said, I was really struggling to do something with that 20 damage to all of your opponent's bench Pokemon that Morpeko VMAX does. So I thought, let's try Roxy with the Blowaway Bomb, Wheezings, and Coughings. That Roxy can be part of our draw package, our supporter, draw support, and it can also spread extra damage. So my idea is that if Jirachi was very relevant in the format, I'm not sure how relevant it's going to be, how popular Jirachi is going to be, but those are single prize 70 HP liabilities on your opponent's bench. So if you could use 2 max discharges to spread 40 to all of your opponent's Pokemon, and then play 2 Roxies, one of them for 2 blowaway bombs, one for 1 blowaway bomb, that would knock out a Jirachi if it was on the board. So you can do this kind of supplemental overtime spread damage to take a prize on Jirachi. You can 2-shot a VMAX or tag team, and you can 1-shot something like a Crobat or Dedenne. And that would be your plan to take all 6 prizes. So that was my idea with this one. Definitely a little bit out there, and definitely a little bit situational, to say the least. But like I said, if Jirachi was popular, then maybe this could work. And also, like I said, I think Morpeko VMAX probably has the least potential in the post-rotation standard format out of all of the Pokemon we're talking about today. But we're still putting it up here. We're still talking about some ideas in case Morpeko VMAX is your favorite VMAX card and you want to make it work. And last, but probably tied for least, is Lapras VMAX. So let's talk about the type advantage and weakness. The type advantage, it has Frostmoth. You can just dump as many energy as you want onto Lapras VMAX because of Frostmoth. And there's also Capacious Bucket, which is a really good energy search for water type energy. The weakness has been huge. The weakness, this has stopped Lapras VMAX and Inteleon VMAX just about from being viable at all. They've squeaked into some day 2s in the Limitless tournaments, but Pikarom has just been a monster of a deck since it came out. Post-rotation's nerfing it a little bit, so with post-rotation nerfing that, and it also, Vikavolt V is not good. It's not as good without the Ultra Prism on cards as it is in Team Up on. So Pikarom and Vikavolt V together are definitely a threat to Lapras, but I do not think they will be as, Lightning type will be as prevalent as it was in this recent standard format, where Pikarom was the most popular deck for some tournaments, the best deck for some tournaments. I definitely think Lapras VMAX could slide through, and even Inteleon VMAX and other lightning weak Pokemon. So let's start talking about Lapras. There's not a lot to do with this card. You'll see a couple cards on here and think, did he put those on the slide by mistake? But I was really scraping the bottom of the barrel to find some interesting things to talk about for Lapras VMAX. And I'm sure you know what Frostmoth, Capacious Bucket, Energy Retrieval do, so let's talk about those two on the bottom. Trainer Court. Once during each player's turn, that player may put a basic energy card from their discard pile into their hand. So this was just a stadium to play to bump your opponent's stadiums if you needed to. If you want to play a stadium, this would be a good stadium to use. Just to get extra energy back. It's like half an energy retrieval every turn. And then this non-V, this just single prize Lapras from a starter deck or from the set or whatever, you might not have even ever read this one. So it has Aqua Wash. For 4 energy, it does 70 damage, which is not very good, but you may put 2 energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon into their hand. Now, this I'm specifically targeting decks like Eternatus VMAX and Dragapult VMAX that have 2 manual attachments to their main attacker. You swing 70, return both of their energy to their hand, and now, especially against Eternatus VMAX, if all they can do is just attach pass, or like attach retreat to the bench, switch to the bench, and they have to wait a turn, and you got 70 damage in. So now with 70 damage in, you'll only need 5 energy on your Lapras VMAX, or 6 energy, 5, 150, 240. Yeah, so you'll need 6 energy on your Lapras VMAX, or 5, yeah, so 6 energy on your Lapras VMAX after swinging in with this Aqua Wash from Lapras. So you can swing in with Aqua Wash from the baby Lapras, stall them for a turn, they're not able to swing back, you retreat, energy retrieval, Training Court, Capacious Bucket, attach your energies, and G-Max Pump for the knockout on Eternatus VMAX. and Eternatus VMAX can never one-shot Lapras VMAX. They would need to use Zigzagoon 5 times with a combination of scoop up nets, and then you'll already have your 6 energy on Lapras VMAX, so then you can just try to pile up a few more to go for another knockout on another Eternatus VMAX. So I think Aqua Wash is really, really interesting if Lapras VMAX ends up being good. This could actually push it over the top in the Eternatus VMAX matchup and potentially some others like that. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, part 1 of the series, building a deck for every VMAX card. And remember, again, this is for the team up on standard format, post-rotation after Darkness Ablaze comes out. Let me know what you thought of this video, and if you want to see part 2, part 3, and we'll keep on going down the list until we cover every VMAX Pokemon, and let me know if there's any other kind of card that you want me to do this kind of series on. Because I think it's really cool to build decks for cards that you like, not necessarily just for the tier 1 deck or the best deck in format. But if you're a more casual player, and let's say you pulled a bunch of Stonjourner VMAXs and you want to build that deck, or you just think Morpeko VMAX is a really cool Pokemon, or the card's awesome, or you're interested in the spread damage. So I want to help you all build the decks you want to build and get your mind working, maybe spark some even better ideas than I had. So hope you enjoyed this video. As always, check out PotownStore.com and use code CELIO for 5% off. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and leave a like on the video. It really does help my channel reach new viewers. And I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.